So yeah, let's get into it. Why the attitude? Hey everyone, and welcome back to my video. And my bird's here joining us today. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about propagating and the 3 ways that I personally propagate. Now there's different ways you can propagate, but these are the ways that I choose to. And after doing a lot of research online, these 3 ways work for me, and it all depends on the type of plant that you have, which is super important. So yeah, let's get into it. So let me just show you the materials that you're gonna need first and foremost, okay? You're gonna need a pot, a ceramic pot. I'm using ceramic, you can use terracotta, depending on the plant that's coming out of the propagation situation that you have it in. You're also gonna need some basic tools. I have a paintbrush here, and I also have these snippers that I bought from Walmart. You're also gonna need some water. I have a little bit of water in a watering can here to water the cuttings after we propagate them in peat moss. You're lastly gonna need some actual peat moss. I hope you can see that. So this is from the brand Miracle Grow. That's the one I use, and that's what I'm also gonna use today. Let's talk about first water propagation. The philodendrons are doing really well in the water propagation. They seem to like it, and the pothos are thriving, okay? And I'll show you later like the little bit of the root system without spilling water on my table, but it's growing pretty well in this water. The next method of propagation is using peat moss. Now this was actually, I'm excited. This is actually like my first time doing this, and I think it came out like super well. It came out really good. I'm gonna show a better close-up later on. It's probably, yeah, you can see it better this way. This is actually some pothos cuttings that okay, I'm embarrassed about this. I got this from my mom's job. People were throwing away their plants, obviously due to COVID and all that stuff. They're not in the office, so they're dying. This one lady had the plant in the garbage, and I was like, throw something out. I'm like, these are like good, viable cuttings. So I took them out of the trash like a weirdo and I propagated them, and it's been like, what, a month? This is the root for that. I'll put it right here on the table, you can see that. I'm gonna actually put these pothos cuttings in the white ceramic pot, and this is peat moss. All you have to do is water it like twice a week maybe, and once it starts to root out, you can kind of lessen the watering, because you don't want to obviously cause root rot, and you don't want to have mold on top of the peat moss, because this is going to stay wet for a few weeks. For me, it was like a month, and then after a month it started to root out. It started to shoot out these little babies here. I don't know if you can see it right there. Okay, so let's get into cutting up this pothos. Now this is a queen marble pothos because of the variegation, right? It has like the white speckles. Sometimes you would get bigger blocks of white on it, but for this one, it's just like white speckles. But also, if you don't give it enough light, you'll get no speckles at all. So this is the white one versus none. So this baby had died, obviously. I think it's from overwatering. This is like what's left. It's kind of sad, but that is what's left of it. So I'm gonna cut them all up. Cut viable cuttings. That's one thing when it comes to propagation. Whether it's watering, peat moss, or soil, make sure you have viable cuttings, okay? When it comes to succulents, they kind of do a little better. Like, you don't have to have like amazing cuttings for succulents because they're really resilient. But for example, okay, I would not use this as a viable cutting because the leaves are wilted away. It's like wilting, and I can try it, but it's already yellowing, and it's most likely not gonna do that well. Even if it has aerial roots on it, it probably won't do that well, so I'm not gonna do that. Okay, so let's talk about this, right? I described this real fast. This is, again, part of the plant, the more variegated part of it, and I would want to propagate this because I want the future leaves when it comes out of these to be variegated as well, right? But there's also a situation going on with the stem. Do you see that, how it's cut? So this leaf probably won't make it, but I'm gonna use it as a test, and I'll keep everyone updated on that to see how this does, how well this will go or be propagated. Also, when it comes to the leaves being ripped, right? I thought that it wouldn't work, but I'm gonna show you my peat moss example. Some of the leaves they have holes in them because of my birds. So, but they still worked really well. You can see the leaves are still doing its thing. It's still growing. It looks really awesome. So yeah, I'm just gonna do like a little bit of I'm just gonna speed up this part, me cutting away the pothos. This is the section of the plant that actually survived, and it's doing really well. I'm still gonna cut the leaves off and the nodes with the leaf, and just propagate them and just have a fuller plant instead of it being super leggy like this. If you want your plant to be super leggy and that's the look you're going for, I would just stick this in peat moss and call it a day, honestly, because obviously the leaf will continue to grow down this way, right? But if you want a nice full bushy plant, I do suggest that you cut this baby up, propagate it, give it a month or two, and watch what happens. You know, it's gonna be bushier. So this, I'm gonna cut this up too. Again, same thing with this. You can definitely water propagate this if you'd like, and just stick the root part in some water, and it will just root out. You know, it'll continue to root out. But I want it to be thicker and fuller, so I'm just gonna cut this one up as well. I'm just gonna start cutting it right now before I show you. So around the same area of each leaf, there should be two things, okay? You need a viable leaf. I can't propagate this one because it's too yellow, it's not gonna work. And you also need a node. So I would cut 1/2 inch above that node and 1/2 inch below that node. So this is what you're gonna get. This is already like one part of the plant. So you pot it in soil, this part down, bottoms down in the soil. So I'm gonna go through and cut a bunch of these just like this. Okay, here's a node, and one stem, one part of stem, the other part. And this is what you'll get. Hopefully a bunch of these. Side note, this is where the paintbrush comes in. It just helps me to keep my area kind of clean while I'm working. So I'm making 3 piles here. I have one pile which is the node cutting. I have one pile which is the leaf cuttings that we just went over with the aerial root and the 2 ends of the stems. And I have another pile where it's like the tip of the plant. This is where the plant would have continued growing, because you kind of see that this is where it would start to branch off a new stem and start going down again. Same thing with this one here. This is actually a baby leaf here. It's kind of damaged. I don't know what happened to it, but there's no node on them. If you can see it, there's no node on these. Just this end part here where roots or aerial roots were. So I'm going to stick this in the soil, bottoms down, the same way I would with these leaf cuttings. Bottoms down this way. I prefer to have 1/2 inch of the stem on each side of the nodes, and this is quite shorter, but I'm going to test it out. Okay, so this is what we're left with after cutting up the whole plant. We're left with, these are the root cuttings that I'm going to attempt to Propagate. I've never done it before. I watched a video from Harley G, and I'll link it in the description box below, where she had a bunch of root cuttings like this, or node cuttings alone, and she just propagated them in sphagnum moss. I don't have that, so I'll try with peat moss. So I only have 2 cuttings like that with nodes on them. And then we have all the leaf cuttings that we just went through. Now, some of them are a little funkier than I'm used to, but they still have viable roots. This one has like a root already. Like, I'm gonna put this straight in the peat moss, and this one's gonna be fine. But the rest of them are pretty much normal, with the 1 node and the 1 leaf with like 1/2 inch to 1/4 of an inch of stem on either side of the nodes. That's the pile of that. Then I have the pile with leaves with no nodes on them. Some of them have them, some of them don't. But for example, this one has 2 little black dots right there. This is 1 node right here. It's small, but I'm sure if I put it in peat moss, it'll grow roots from there. So that's the pile that I have too right here. Oh, this one's a little wonky. This one's a little wonkier. This one has the same thing. It has the 1/2 inch of stem on each side. It has an aerial node, which is kind of drying out. But it also has, these are the sheaths I'm taking off. I'm not taking off the roots. It has 2 leaves connected to it. So this may be like its own little plant, which is kind of cute. Now I'm just gonna put these all aside, and we're gonna go over taking out cuttings from peat moss, okay? Or from whatever it's in already. I have these cuttings coming out of peat moss that I had propagated a month back, like I said. So I'm just gonna take these out. So these are coming out of the peat moss, going into regular soil. These cuttings that we just did together, these are going into the peat moss in this ceramic bowl here. So it's actually quite easy. What I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna gently pull them out, just like how I did for the example here with the root. I'm just gonna gently pull them out and pop them in here, okay? Just gently, super gently. You can actually try to loosen up the soil a little bit, which I will do because I don't want to hurt the new babies. I'm just gonna mix up the soil. And this soil, I'm not gonna reuse this. Sorry, this is peat moss, but I'm not gonna reuse the peat moss for the queen marble cuttings we just cut up. So look at this. I'm doing this in real time with you all. So this is the root from a cutting. This took like a month, maybe. Have patience with these plants, okay? It takes a little longer than you expected, but honestly, water it once a week, and you don't even, like, for me, I don't know, I just forgot about it and worried about my other plants. Just, you know, water and forget. Don't think about it. Don't pull it out of the peat moss. You're just going to stress the roots out and stress yourself out constantly looking for roots. This cutting I just pulled out has no root in it at all. It's been in the pot the same time as, I just pulled this one out randomly, the same time as this. Look at this root system versus this non-existent one. Same time, same watering, same amount of sunlight, but sometimes it just doesn't work. I'm not gonna throw this out. I'm just gonna put it to the side, and we'll just put it in there with the queen marble. You can kind of tell when your plant is doing well, if it's starting to push out some new growth, like how this one is right here at the bottom. It's pushing out some new growth, or by how perky the leaves get. Like before you propagate them, if it's like this, wilted, it needs water, it needs nutrients, whatever, right? So once it starts to perk up like this, you know that it's getting its water, the root systems are developing, and you're doing a good job of just waiting. So even though it's in peat moss, even though they're cuttings, they still need sunlight. I wouldn't do direct light per se, but indirect sunlight, like having it, you know, like a few feet away from a window. This one has no roots. This one has no roots, and I'm gonna put it right back in there later. Okay, this one, the extra stem, it was too much extra stem for this one, so I'm just gonna cut that off, the rotting part. Same thing with this one, cut off the rotting part, not the roots. Okay, here you go. This is the pot. These are the cuttings that we will be putting into the ceramic bowl. I'm just gonna share with you the amount of cuttings we got from here. So we'll just count together. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cuttings going into this 4-inch pot, which will make a really nice bushy pothos plant. This was an experiment, my first time using peat moss. I've done water cuttings in the past. So I poured a little bit in here. At first I think I put too much last time, but I'm just gonna put a little bit. The problem is with this ceramic bowl is that it's not as flat as I want it to be. So I have to kind of put a little bit more peat moss in here so that the leaves, so that sun can hit the leaves, you know, so that the leaves can still get the sun and not have the pot blocking its sun, you know. So I'm just gonna put it in there. Put a little bit more. Okay, so this is what I have here. Fresh peat moss. You can choose to water it right now, or you can choose to water it after. I'm gonna try to water it. I'm just gonna try to water it after I put the cuttings in. Last time I watered it beforehand, and I don't know. I just like the dry soil better like this. So I'm just gonna pop it in there. Boom. And for me, since I have birds, I try not to have the leaf hanging off here like this, or any animal, just so that they don't go to it or harass it. I'm just gonna pop them all like this. Gonna do that all around. I'm just gonna continue plopping these in here in a cute little design, because you have to look at the design for like a month or two, depending on how grown out you want your roots to be. Now you can even like already start to see, once this starts to catch and once the roots start to develop and start to go deeper into the peat moss, you'll have like a super full plant. So sometimes it's good to take cuttings when your plants are starting to get leggy. Unless you like that look, then hey, you do you, boo-boo, okay? But for me, I prefer a bushier plant. Just gonna give it one last watering with whatever's left in my can. Not a lot. But I'll water it again a little later, just so the peat moss is all wet and everything's secure in here. I kind of want to say set it and forget it, but you don't want to forget your cuttings. So this is what we have here. We have the peperomias here. This I'm testing out, just cutting the leaf and putting in the peat moss. And all the little cuttings for the pothos. I think it looks super cute. It's heavy already from watering it in the peat moss, but I think this will turn out to be a really full plant. So personally, like I said, I tuck the leaves, like, you know, so that it's not hanging off the side of it if I can. But this may actually stay in my room, so my birds don't eat it. These are the root ones. I am going to attempt to water propagate them and see what happens, because it's super dry. I don't know. I'm gonna water propagate them. This one I'm gonna stick this in the soil actually. With the aerial root, this part down. This is the dry sheaf. Not leaf, sheaf. So I'm gonna pop this in here like this. See what happens, you never know. Same thing with this. These are actual roots. I'm just gonna cut off the yellowy part. Aerial root side down, right in there. I'm definitely gonna have to water this again. So this is what we have. It's so cute and full. This is like a what, 6 to 7 inch pot, I think. Maybe 8. And we have like 13 or more cuttings in here, viable cuttings. This can get a little messy, but these are my water propagations for my pothos. You can even see, like, when I first started, okay, I'll show you. This is what it looks like. Hopefully you guys don't see that. It's gonna get messy, but it is what it is, okay? These are the roots. These are the new roots. These, when I first put them in here, they had no roots at all. But this is the mason jar that I'm using right now. The water's a little bit green, but I just want to show you the propagations that I had in there. So when your roots become squishy and dark, get them off because they're not good anymore. But this is the part of the plant that is good still. It's still viable. And all these roots are coming out, which is super cool. It's a little slimy because I think algae started to build up on it. But I need to change the water more often. So when you're doing cuttings like this, you want nice healthy cuttings, change and clean the water often. Clean the bottle inside of it too, because these plants need the oxygen from the clean water, you know. So I'll do that later. But this is pretty much like the cuttings. These are one of the cuttings that had like the little bulbs with the aerial roots but nothing coming out of them. And now it has its own, it started to grow its own root and doing its own thing. Ideally you can put this in soil right now. I don't think I will because I like the way they look in the water. And I'm just gonna put the new one that we just discovered today in this water and it'll root out the same way. I'm also gonna put this in the water. See what happens, like you never know, you feel me? And that's it for that. I hope you all enjoyed today. I hope you enjoyed my little demonstration on my dying pothos. But I'm trying with it. I'm getting better with them. I hope you learned something. I hope it was informational. And comment down below if you guys learned something. Let me know if you ever tried propagating before. I just kind of like accidentally got into it with succulents because they kind of propagate so fast. But now I'm doing it with like the majority of my plants. So let me know down below. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like this video, and share it to your friends, to your planty friends. And I'll see you guys in the next. Bye!